Hi everyone, I'm Alex and you're watching the Beam Weekly Development Update for January 14, 2020. Before we dive into the details, I would like to say a few words about the previous video that we released last week. It was about 9.5 minutes long and it had two segments. In the first segment, I have presented an overview of our roadmap for 2020, and in the second segment, I've provided in-depth explanation about Lilanto's Mimble-Wimble protocol, what we're going to do with it in Beam and how it works. This week, we're going to do things a little bit differently. We're going to release two separate videos. In this one, I will cover the current status of our development, and I will also answer some questions that were asked in our communities in Telegram and Discord. In a separate video titled In Depth, I will talk this week about our idea for Beam Wallet service, and I will show a demo of Beam Web Wallet, which is based on that concept. So let's get started. As usual, to see the current status of Beam development, we go to the Beam GitHub page, click on the main Beam repository, go into projects, and select the current project for the next version, which is Double Doppler 4.2. As you can see here in the In Progress column, we're currently working on several features, namely the wallet channels, the API for atomic swap market makers, and the wallet ID. Of course, we're also developing the Lilanto support in the wallet, which I have discussed in the previous video. So right now I would like to go and say a few words about each and every feature that we are currently working on. Let's start with the Beam wallet channels. The idea of the Beam wallet channels is to be able to broadcast information for each wallet using our SBBS system, similar to a way it is currently done in Beam atomic swap offers. Such information could include, for example, Beam exchange rate with Bitcoin or US dollar, or present notifications about the new wallet releases. As you can see in the screenshot here, it can be very useful to understand the exact amount of the Beams you have in USD or BTC, and you can also receive additional information, considering, of course, the fact that we do not really want to overload the SBBS system. We could have done this using an external API, but this would expose your IP address, so it's much more secure and safer to do this using the SBBS system. And this is what the wallet channels are all about. The next feature we're currently working on is the API for atomic swaps. We have launched the atomic swap feature last year, and it allows two parties to exchange between Beam, Bitcoin, Litecoin, or Quantum in a completely trustless and decentralized way without relying on a third party. We consider atomic swaps to be a major achievement and a big step toward decentralization. However, to be really useful, we need to create automations and market-making tools on top of atomic swaps, and all that will be enabled using the atomic swap API. The last feature I would like to present today is the wallet ID. It's more of an infrastructure change, and it's very important for the correct implementation of the hardware wallet integration and the wallet service. The idea is to create an additional signature during the transaction creation process. And if you want to learn more about this feature, you're welcome to watch the in-depth video that will be also released today and will be dedicated to the wallet service and the web wallet implementation, where I will explain exactly how it works and what this wallet ID means. So it's now time to answer a few questions that we have received from our community in our new Q&A segment. And the first question comes from Raskul, who is Beam's all-time friend, Beam ambassador, and also community moderator. And he asks about the hardware wallet situation. There are quite a lot of few other people who asked about this, so I think it's time that I explain exactly what's going on currently in the Beam hardware wallet saga. So we have started implementing the hardware wallet feature in Beam about a year ago. And at that time, the only device that was powerful enough to support what we needed in terms of cryptography, bulletproofs and everything was the Trezor T. So we started with Trezor T, and we have done all the work that we needed, and we have even added this feature to the Beam desktop wallet. And we were lucky enough to be allowed to submit a pull request to Trezor, because at that time their policy only supported top 30 cryptocurrencies, and we were not the top 30 cryptocurrency at the time. And after that it got kind of stuck because of Trezor internal priorities and because integrating this code into Trezor was not a simple thing to do. However, as it often happens with other Beam features, even if we do not release them immediately, we learn a lot in the process. And what we've learned in this case are basically two things. First of all, even if we would have released this feature, it would not be good enough because of how Beam works in terms of transaction creation process. So as you know, in Beam, transactions are created using the SBBS system, and this system uses a separate set of keys. So if we would have launched the hardware wallet support without using the SBBS keys on the device, which is not possible because it's just too much information for the device to process, it still would have allowed the attacks on your host and allowed intercepting the SBBS messages, of course would not be good enough. So this is where the wallet ID that I have been talking about earlier comes in, and it provides an additional signature which will be performed on the hardware wallet, and thus it will serve like this kind of two-factor authentication for the transaction creation process, and it will be secure even if the host and SBBS is compromised. So the other thing we have learned is that basically we do not necessarily need to calculate bulletproofs on the hardware device itself. We could devise a scheme which would be as secure as it is implemented now, but while calculating the bulletproofs on the client and not on the hardware device. And what it means that when we implement this schema, and we're currently working on it, it will be possible for us to integrate Beam hardware wallet support to older devices such as Ledger Nano S and also the older Trezor models. And it will be a big achievement. So we're currently working on that. So basically the situation right now is that even though our pull request is stuck in Trezor, we're working on two improvements, the wallet ID and the new bulletproof schema, so that we can also integrate these into older hardware wallet devices. And we believe that this year we will launch either with Ledger, a Ledger application that will support Beam, or a custom firmware for Trezor that will also allow the same capabilities. So that's the situation with the hardware wallets for now. Our second question comes from Karan Patel, who is also an all-time and very active Beam community member. And he asks about three things: about the current situation with the laser beam and how it's different from the Bitcoin Lightning Network, about the Tor implementation, and about the Rust porting. So let me try to answer these questions one at a time. So as you know, laser beam was implemented last year, but we did not release it at the time. And basically what laser beam is the ability to create direct payment channels between two wallets and lock some amount of coins from each side, and then have instant transactions without waiting for any confirmations between the wallets within the locked amount in the channel. So conceptually, it's very similar to what is being done in the Lightning Network payment channel part, but of course it's adapted to be used with the Mimblewimble protocol. The other part, which is the routing of the channels, it's something that we didn't have a chance to investigate and do yet. So we're hoping to get to this year, but it's a much more difficult and challenging task with all the routing and the ability to transfer funds between routes and refinance the channel. So it's a much bigger feature to implement, and I really hope that we will get to that this year. So the second part of the question is about the Tor support, and we have currently published some wiki article about how to set up the Tor proxy to use with Beam Wallet. However, currently we are not working on integrating the complete support for Tor services inside the node. It will require some major refactoring. We do not need this at this time for the addressing scheme because we have SBBS support and it's already very convenient to create transactions in Beam. So at the moment it's kind of a second priority for us, and I hope that we will get there as well this year, but after we finish our top priority items, which are the Lelantus and the confidential assets implementations. Regarding Rust, it's actually an interesting topic to discuss. So when we first started developing Beam at the very beginning, so we were thinking about whether to implement Beam in Rust or in C++, and at that time it was very difficult to find good Rust programmers available on the market, and I knew a bunch of great guys who knew C++ very well, so we went with C++, and I want to say that we're really happy with the results, like everything works. However, since if there is like one absolute truth in the world, is that it's that Rust is cool, so we always wanted to do something in Rust. And unfortunately, we didn't get around to do something with it last year. And once again, I hope that this year, maybe with support from the community and maybe with some grants from the foundation, we will be able to do some projects in Rust, maybe the alternative wallet implementation or something else. So we're still kind of positive that we will do something in Rust, but once again, it's not something being done at the moment. Our last question for today comes from Mel Gibson, who turns out is our community member on Discord. And Mel is asking whether the upcoming web wallet release will have support for atomic swap. So unfortunately, no. We want to finish the API first and get some traction before we add this feature into web wallet and mobile wallets as well. But we will do this, I hope, this year. So there is a lot to wait for. Thank you very much for your question, Mel, and loved you in conspiracy theory. These were all the updates that we had for today. Thank you very much for watching and supporting Beam. Please subscribe to our channel below to get all the updates that we have on video. Thank you very much and have a great day.